Welcome to this video memory of your luxurious cruise aboard the MS Statendam. Fort Lauderdale is a big little city with a beautiful seaside setting. Known for its beaches, it attracts thousands of vacationers every year. The charming town center on SOLAS Boulevard is a tree-lined oasis with charming sidewalk cafes and fashionable boutiques. While Fort Lauderdale seems to be a creation of post-war sensibilities, its recorded history dates back to 1575. And of course, before the Europeans arrived, Tequesta Indians lived happily in their coastal homeland. The town took off in a big way in the late 19th century when canals were created through the lagoons and marshes. Taking advantage of its setting on the extensive intracoastal waterway, Fort Lauderdale recently refurbished and expanded Riverwalk. A great way to appreciate the location and the ambiance of Fort Lauderdale is to hop aboard a sightseeing boat. Mansions and marinas line the route. Fort Lauderdale is part of Florida's intracoastal waterway system, so many backyards have boats instead of swing sets. This waterway connects with the Everglades, a beautiful sea of grass that is home to marvelous flora and fauna. The Everglades comprise over 2,000 square miles of protected land, making it the third largest national park. Another way to appreciate the natural treasures of this region is with a visit to Flamingo Gardens. This eco-sensitive preserve keeps alive many of Florida's endangered plants and animals. Created by the Ray family in the 1920s, it's an oasis of beauty and an important research center. Many of the citrus fruits we take for granted were created here. This area of South Florida is truly a vacationer's delight. As you stepped aboard, the magic of an ocean voyage began. atmosphere of warm hospitality surrounded you as you began to explore the Statendam. This gracious welcome was matched by the traditions and skills of more than a century of seafaring expertise. A gala evening of fun was in store as the captain, his officers, and staff joined in saying, "Welcome aboard."
Thank you all for coming to this party. After the party, a most delightful dinner. May God bless you, and it's great to have you always as this cruise.
Half Moon Key, a small island in the Bahamas, has been transformed into a private playground just for Holland America passengers. Clear waters, a coral reef, endless water sports, and tropical relaxation define the Half Moon Key experience, which for many cruisers is what the Caribbean is all about. Grand Cayman is a favorite destination among knowledgeable Caribbean vacationers. It combines unusual sights with great shopping and incomparable beaches. Your ship anchors off the capital city of Georgetown, and this is where most of the island's commercial activity takes place. The waters around Grand Cayman were once teeming with sea turtles. European explorers would stock up on them as food for the return trip to the Old World. As a result, the turtles were hunted nearly to extinction. The Cayman Turtle Farm is involved in both commercial and environmental breeding to restock the ocean. Grand Cayman is known for its great beaches. This one is unusual with its lava formations and distinctively named adjoining town. Postcards mailed from here receive a postmark proving the sender has indeed been to hell. The most famous of Grand Cayman's beaches is 7 Mile Beach. Sunning and swimming tell only part of the story. Under the sparkling water, there are over 300 submerged wrecks, an irresistible lure for divers. You can take to the water to see the sights, or take the ride of a lifetime in an Atlantis submarine. An unusual attraction in the waters of the North Sound is Stingray City.
When they're born, they're about the size of like a 6 or 7 inch solid plate. Tail's about 1.5 feet long. Real cute kids. They got probably 5 or 6 months. They are members of the shark family. Their closest relative is the angel shark. So a lot of different, or not different, a lot of similarities to sharks. All cartilage, live birth. They have a very good sense of smell. About 70% of their brain is devoted to their sense of smell.
Divers and snorkelers and swimmers enter the world of these graceful creatures and discover that, despite their ominous name, they are velvety soft and very curious. Just as lovely as viewing it all from the air. After sightseeing, swimming, or shopping, your ship provided a warm welcome home. While the Statendam sailed serenely through the sea, you enjoyed the ship's comforts, from sun-swept decks to elegant lounges. Behind the scenes, the captain, officers, and staff worked continuously to ensure a safe, serene journey. At one time, the ship's bells rang out the watch and warned of danger. Today, the latest computer and satellite technology are utilized on the bridge and in the control room. The Statendam's radio officer explains just how much technology is changing the way ships operate.
Yeah, in the last few years, radio communication has changed quite dramatically. We no longer use the old Morse key, and terrestrial telephone calls are no longer used. We find that everything that goes out of the ship now, in a communication sense, is via satellite. Our machine talks to their machine, and we merely operate the machines. So as a communication officer, life has changed quite dramatically.
All of this high-tech equipment is in the hands of skilled officers with years of ocean-going experience. Their special talent is to blend the most up-to-date technology with some timeless techniques. The bridge can be in direct contact with the control room. Here, too, technology has rapidly changed the way things work. The control room is the heart of the Statendam, and from here, the engine room staff oversees all technical aspects of the cruise. The Statendam's chief engineer explains about this control center of the ship.
He has altogether 5 diesel generator sets. There are 2 big ones, 2 12 cylinders, and there are 3 small ones, 3 8-cylinder engines, to provide electricity for the electromotors that are propelling the ships. We got 2 main propellers, and the number of RPM on those propellers will vary from 50 till 150 revolutions per minute, depending on the speed of the ship, of course. The average cruising speed is 20 miles, and the consumption of fuel oil will then be approximately 120 metric tons of fuel, heavy fuel oil. The electricity we produce, and this is without the propulsion engines, the electricity that is needed all through the ship, is approximately 6,000 kilowatts.
Of course, there are stabilizers for smoothing out rough seas, and the Statendam produces its own fresh water from seawater, 150,000 gallons a day. The skilled staff in the engine room, the captain, and the expert officers on the bridge work together to keep you cruising smoothly through the sea. Your Panama Canal transit takes you through one of the modern wonders of the world. Making a westbound transit, you leave the Atlantic Ocean at Limon Bay. To the east are Cristobal and the city of Cologne. Near the Atlantic entrance to the canal, you can see Frenchman's Cut, a legacy of the attempt made by France to build a waterway across Panama. Disease and financial ruin finally put a halt to their efforts in 1889. At the entrance to the canal, you'll always see a bit of a traffic jam, as ships of all varieties and from all over the world await their turn to cross. Passenger ships receive priority, so you'll get to move in ahead of the line. The waters of Limon Bay narrow into a channel, guiding you toward the Gatun locks. As your ship approaches the first set of locks, activity increases. As everyone gathers on deck to observe the proceedings, your ship takes on a pilot and the many workers who make crossing possible. The bright green and orange neon arrow indicates which side of the locks to enter. Traffic flows both ways through the locks. At this point, lines will be brought to the ship. Although many methods have been used to deliver the lines, including motor launches and shooting them from cannons, the trusty rowboat continues to be the most efficient way. Once the shipboard lines are in place, they're attached to locomotives called mules. These mules keep the ship safely positioned in the lock. Behind you, the giant steel doors swing shut, and a balancing act takes place. Water flows from the higher lock into the lower one, holding the ship. The water level in your lock rises until the two are at equal levels. Water flows through culverts beneath the locks. These underground tunnels are the size of a New York subway. During a canal crossing, 52 million gallons of fresh water will be used. The locks are like an aquatic staircase. Your ship steps up into Gatun Lake and then steps down again into the ocean. This cutaway view of the Panama Canal illustrates the staircase effect. Ships step up one side of the locks into Gatun Lake, then step down through the other locks into the ocean. The final set of lock doors opens to allow passage into Gatun Lake. Gatun Lake was formed by damming the Chagres River and was for a time the largest man-made lake ever created. It held that honor until Lake Mead was formed by Hoover Dam. You see ships of every description as they all await their turn in the locks at either end of the lake. As Gatun Lake narrows, you pass by Gamboa, midpoint of the canal crossing. At Gamboa, the dredging division has its headquarters halfway between the two oceans. Dredging is carried on continuously as silt fills in at a rate of 4 inches per year. Every inch counts, as ships can have a maximum draft of 39 feet 6 inches. Passing by Gamboa, you approach the Gaillard Cut. This 9-mile stretch is the steepest and was the most difficult to excavate. The passage narrows, the banks are higher, and here you are very much in a canal. The Gaillard Cut was originally called the Culebra Cut, after the nearest town. It was renamed in honor of Colonel David Gaillard. The French struggle to build a canal lasted for 10 years and took 20,000 lives. By comparison, 5,600 died during America's successful attempt. As you cruise through the Gaillard Cut, the sense of being in the tropics is most strongly felt, and with it comes appreciation of what was created out of the jungle wilderness. Near the southern end of the cut, activity once more picks up as the ship approaches its second set of locks, the Pedro Miguel locks. Once again, rowboats bring lines to the ship, which will be attached to the mules. Another example of the amazing efficiency of design is that the 700-ton steel doors are opened with a mere 40-horsepower electric engine. The doors are hollow, so their buoyancy makes the feat possible. The Pedro Miguel locks open into Miraflores Lake. There's a third lake in the canal zone, Maiden Lake, but is never used by ships in transit. At the southern end of Miraflores Lake, you enter the third and final set of locks, the Miraflores locks. In a westbound transit, this is where you step down toward the ocean. You're nearing the end of the 50-mile transit, which generally takes between 6 and 9 hours to complete. This time, when the final set of lock doors open, the fresh water of the canal mingles with the salt water of the Pacific. The port of Balboa is close at hand, and in the distance stand the skyscrapers of Panama City. As you enter the Pacific Ocean, consider the words of General Goethals, under whose command the canal was completed. When asked for the secret of success in building the canal, he answered, "It is the pride that everyone feels in the work." You have experienced one of the world's great engineering wonders, the Panama Canal. Dining on board the Statendam was a day-long indulgence. The Java Cafe was the spot to relax with that first cup of coffee. Lunch was served at the Lido Cafe, or outside at a scenic poolside buffet. The elegant Explorer's Lounge was the place to meet for afternoon tea. As a special occasion, the Royal Dutch tea was an opulent display of tempting treats.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Royal Dutch Tea, your high tea on the high seas.
The traditions and creativity of fine cuisine were elevated to an art form on board the Statendam. An army of chefs worked round the clock to produce these dining delights. Their skills ranged from delicate artistry to bold strokes of creation. From the dazzling dessert extravaganza to the theatrical presentation of baked Alaska, the food was simply fabulous. From the moment of arrival in Costa Rica, the warmth and color of this small country are evident. From this small Pacific port, visitors travel to the capital through ever-changing scenery marked by farms, plantations, and beautiful countryside. San Jose itself is a pleasant combination of colonial and contemporary Spanish culture. The National Museum is a former military fortress, so its location provides an excellent overview of the city. When the Costa Rican Army was abolished, the site was given over for use as a museum. It has a fine collection of archaeological and historical artifacts. And of course, on the streets of San Jose, there are more opportunities for souvenir buying. Bargaining is usually done to the sounds of clay pipes and marimbas, which are found everywhere in the city. Considered by many to be the most beautiful building in Costa Rica, the National Theater is a 19th century neoclassical delight. Its salons, staircases, and murals are colonial splendor at its best. Between the coast and San Jose lies the charming town of Sarchi, famous for its brightly colored wooden crafts. This village is a bargain hunter's delight, where you can watch souvenirs being made. Another village of note is Grecia, with its incredible all-metal church. The sections were created in Belgium, then shipped to Grecia for construction. The bustling charm of San Jose and the friendly welcome of rural villages are matched by the great natural beauty of Costa Rica. Carrara rainforest is just one of the many ecosystems found in Costa Rica. To put the variety of flora and fauna in perspective, in all of the United States, there are approximately 800 species of birds. In tiny Costa Rica, there are over 900. Birds, butterflies, coatimundis, monkeys, and countless other forms of wildlife are found here. Costa Rica has taken the lead in ecotourism, setting aside rainforest preserves, river and mangrove habitats for study and protection. Visitors are still welcome to explore, but it's the native species that takes center stage. Whether it's hiking, rafting, kayaking, or riding, there are adventures for any and all travelers who revel in the splendor of nature. And adventurers can see this beauty from a thrilling perspective.
This little flower we have here, it's a rubiaceae, and it's common in cloud forests or tropical humid forests, and its common name is hot lips. So you can see it here. They don't bloom. So you see the little flowers here, so they look like lips. So that's why they got the common name of hot lips.
The combination of scenic beauty, rural charm, colonial heritage, and welcoming ticos makes Costa Rica a little country with a big heart. The port city of San Juan del Sur is a perfect gateway to Nicaragua's natural attractions, history, and art. The largest country in Central America, Nicaragua contains more than 25 volcanoes, several of which are still active. This adds both beauty and danger to life here. One of Nicaragua's national parks enables travelers to closely inspect an active volcano. There are even steps to the top of the Masaya volcano, which also offers a spectacular view of the surrounding countryside. No visit here is complete without a trip to Granada, located on the shores of magnificent Lake Nicaragua. This is one of the oldest and loveliest cities in Central America. Exploring the city is a treat. You'll marvel at the colonial mansions, museums, churches, convents, and squares. The main plaza is a lively center of culture and commerce. San Francisco Convent, besides being architecturally fascinating, contains the world's largest collection of pre-Columbian stone sculptures.
These statues were found in the Zapatera Island. It's about 20 kilometers away from the mainland, Grenada. These islands are estimated 1,300 years old. They were discovered in 1883 by some people from London and from the Dutchland Republic. Here we find a lot of statues. If you see, there is a face or the shape of an animal on top of the Indian. The meaning of it is that they have an alter ego, another me. And that animal sometimes is an alligator, a turtle, and that means that the animal is the protector of the Indian.
The impressive cathedral and its forecourt are also well worth a visit. Another destination is the town of Masaya. This is the primary artist community in Nicaragua. Besides being a wonderful place to experience typical Central American lifestyles, the two markets here offer an extremely wide variety of goods, from food and books to clothing and art treasures. Off the beaten track is the Hacienda La Moca with its 500-year-old ceiba trees. This is a working coffee plantation. Coffee is one of the main agricultural mainstays of Nicaragua, second only to cotton. Fortunately, free tastes are available. Nearby the Mocha plantation is the Picadero, where shows are given by equestrians of the Spanish pureblood horse school. This school is noted for its precision movements. The terrain and lifestyles of Nicaragua and its people seem untouched by modern society. Because of the easy charm and beauty of the place, we can't help but hope it will stay that way. The pleasures of an ocean voyage are uniquely wonderful. The feel of salt air and sea spray provided an invigorating lift to the spirit. As you cruise toward new horizons, the expansive reach of the ocean was the backdrop for fun. And as the wake disappeared behind you, memories were born that will never be forgotten. The scenic coastline of Oaxaca is a sunny playground of beautiful beaches, quaint villages, and elegant resorts. This is the new focus of Mexican tourism, and visitors see a pristine region that is earmarked as the next great attraction of the West Coast. The little port of Huatulco is landfall for voyagers, and from here the emerald coast of Oaxaca is open for exploration. The name Bajías de Huatulco refers to the 9 bays which cover a stretch of coastline 22 miles long. Most famous are Santa Cruz, Tangolunda, Conejos, and Meguellito bays. Each has its own scenic charm, and all have crystal clear water protecting colorful reefs. In the waters off Huatulco, dolphin, turtles, and other marine life can be found by the observant nature lover. At the nearby Turtle Museum, studies and programs are in place to protect the endangered species found in these waters. Tangolunda is the heart of the resort development of the area. The name means pretty woman in the Mixtecan language, and here are found modern resorts and an estate used by royalty and presidents who are guests of the Mexican government. The quaint villages of the area recall an era when this was a quiet, little-known part of the West Coast. Sun-washed plazas are the center of daily activity, and fishermen give way to vendors who welcome the new influx of visitors. It's hard to imagine, but at one time this was the most important port on the West Coast. Vessels laden with goods would call here for trade with Mexico City. Then, in the 17th century, the port of Acapulco began to dominate Pacific trade, and Huatulco faded into near obscurity. There are local legends about the origins of Huatulco, and these have become entwined with colonial-era stories inspired by Catholic priests. But one of the most interesting stories persists to this day, that of the eye stone. Thousands of people believe that a variety of ocular ailments have been cured by leaving one of these special stones in the eye overnight. There are stones for all ages, and they can be tested by dropping lime juice on the surface of the stone and seeing if it will move. This is certainly the time to become acquainted with Huatulco. Modern amenities have been brought in to complement the scenic delights of the region, and yet it still retains the sleepy charm of a bygone era. As the Statendam sailed on to your next fascinating port of call, there was a dazzling array of fun on board. Perhaps you visited the Crow's Nest for a quiet drink before dinner. Did you dance the night away? For a casual evening, the theater offered up current movies. Lady Luck beckoned from the exciting casino. As you quickly discovered, a highlight of the cruise was the glittering entertainment presented by world-class performers. Beauty, glamour, sophistication. These are just some of the images that pop to mind when you hear the name Acapulco. The sparkling waters of Acapulco Bay have lured fishermen and travelers for centuries. The sunny shores of the surrounding coastline are filled with fabulous homes, craggy cliffs, and popular beaches. When Acapulco became a transit port of Spanish gold, Fort San Diego was built to defend city and bay. It later became famous as the site of the last battle in Mexico's War of Independence. The fort's location provides wonderful views of this cosmopolitan city. The busy streets of Acapulco hum with vitality. The local market sells everything necessary for traditional tastes, while the boutique and shops downtown cater to visitors who are searching for the perfect keepsake. City sightseeing takes in popular landmarks that have defined Acapulco for decades. Since hitting its stride in the 1950s, this resort city has been a lure for international vacationers, while retaining much of the local ambiance of traditional Mexico. While sightseeing options abound, the bustling streets of downtown Acapulco are not the city's main attraction. The wide sweep of Acapulco Bay is fronted by high-rise hotels built to take advantage of an unforgettable beachfront setting. Further south are elegant resorts that are among the most famous in the world. Las Brisas has a cliff-top location with views that are, quite simply, superb. The nearby Peace Chapel lends a serene atmosphere to the stunning setting. Still further outside the city is the landmark Princess Hotel. Its innovative design set a new standard for Mexican resorts. Neighboring hotels have stepped up to challenge the renown of Acapulco's most famous resort. The result is a stretch of beach lined with luxurious vacation playgrounds. No visit to Acapulco would be complete without a trip to see the cliff divers at La Quebrada. El Mirador Hotel is the lookout post from which thousands of spectators hold their breath as the daring divers take the plunge. Watching the cliff divers may inspire dreams of flight. If so, The aerial perspective on Acapulco is ideal. A visit to Acapulco is suffused with a sense of jet-set excitement found in few other cities of the world. From the spacious decks of the Statendam to its public rooms, everyone finds their own special place on board. Here's a chance for you to remember the stunning art, cozy corners, and elegant surroundings of your floating resort. The beautiful port of Cabo San Lucas welcomes visitors with a festive air. A colorful marketplace is only a moment's walk from dockside, and it's easy to be tempted by the variety of souvenirs and local handicrafts. The bay at Cabo San Lucas was once a hideout for pirates. Now its inhabitants lure visitors with great sport fishing, shopping, whale watching, and wide sandy beaches. No trip to Cabo would be complete without seeing the famous natural beauty of Los Arcos. They are the scenic signature of this coastline and can be seen from open ocean or protected bay. In addition to the natural splendor of the rock formations, you'll see plenty of wildlife. Every year, gray whales migrate to the lagoons of Baja California. Year-round inhabitants include sea lions, black dolphin, and pelicans. There's also a steady migration of sun worshippers who find the resorts and beaches of Cabo irresistible. The Baja Peninsula has rugged scenery that's set off by its craggy coastline. The United States once held claim to Baja, but gave it away, thinking it nothing more than a haven for rattlesnakes and cactus. Americans might regret the decision when they see the contrasting beauty of desert and ocean. The resort of Cabo San Lucas grew in response to foreign favor. The older traditional town of San Jose del Cabo recalls an era of quiet charm. Traditional crafts are still created in time-honored ways, and these keepsakes often become the souvenirs that visitors take away as a remembrance of this attractive seaside village. Cabo is growing as more and more people come to enjoy the natural splendor of its setting. Citizens of San Diego proudly refer to their home as America's finest city. It certainly is true that San Diego enjoys an almost perfect climate. Mild, sunny days provide the ideal conditions to revel in the outdoor beauty of this California city, 6th largest in the United States. San Diego is defined partly by its watery surroundings. A splendid natural harbor is home to military vessels, and Mission Bay is the setting for recreational ones. Along the sparkling coastline, surfers, sun worshippers, and nature lovers find the perfect wave, stretch of sand, or scenic viewpoint. From the old mission founded by Father Junipero Serra to the world-famous zoo nestled in Balboa Park, San Diego has attractions both natural and historic to keep visitors entertained. We wish you treasured memories of colorful ports, superb scenery, and the charming MS Statendam. And we hope we'll see you again soon for another cruise that is magical, marvelous, and memorable.
The turbulent Pacific Ocean, the tranquil Caribbean Sea, two bodies of water separated by a tantalizingly narrow isthmus. Imperial Spain first dreamt of a passageway that would allow New World treasure to make its way into the king's coffers without the arduous trek through steamy jungle. Centuries later, merchants and miners sought a route that would eliminate the perilous journey around Cape Horn. From the moment Balboa gazed out at the Pacific Ocean until the steamship Ancon made the first transit, the passage between two oceans was a tempting dream. The eventual realization of this dream has created a modern marvel and a travel experience that is unforgettable. The French first took on the challenge of a canal across the Isthmus of Panama. Fresh from triumphs in building the Corinth Canal and the Suez Canal, Ferdinand de Lesseps took command. He was convinced that a sea-level canal, like both Corinth and Suez, was the engineering answer. Frenchman's Cut is a legacy of their attempt, which lasted 10 years and took 22,000 lives. The hostile jungle environment had defeated Count Ferdinand de Lesseps. Colombia, which at that time controlled the isthmus, wanted nothing more to do with the project. Then, in 1903, a one-day revolution created the country of Panama, and set the political stage for an American attempt at a canal. Taking a lesson from the failed French attempt, it would have seemed obvious that a sea-level canal could not work in Panama. But there was protracted and heated debate in Congress as to whether the Americans should build a sea-level or lock canal. Congress and President Theodore Roosevelt were ultimately persuaded that the only possible way to proceed was to construct a dam across the Chagres River, use the waters of the dammed river to create a lake, and build locks at either end of the lake. This cutaway drawing shows in simplified form just how the concept works. Ships enter the canal at sea level, then step up through locks to get to the lake. At 85 feet, this is the highest point of a crossing. A ship then steps down to sea level at the opposite end of the canal. This aquatic staircase saves 8,000 miles on an ocean passage from New York to San Francisco. Ships making a westbound transit enter the canal through Limon Bay. Those heading eastward cruise past Panama City. This city was the crossroad of Spanish trade and exploratory routes. When the British pirate Morgan burned the city to the ground, a new walled stronghold was built. Despite being ravaged by frequent fires, the city has always been rebuilt on this site. At either entrance to the canal, there's always a bit of a traffic jam. Because of the time and money saved by going through the canal, ships of every size and from all over the world congregate at its entrance. Passenger ships receive priority and move to the head of the line. Upon entering the canal, a ship loses its name and is given a set of letters and numbers. This special designation stays with the ship throughout its time in the canal. All passenger carriers are identified by the final letter Z. Every ship takes on a canal pilot and workers who are expert in the special handling that ships require as they make their way between the seas. A passage through the canal requires clockwork precision from controllers on shore as well as the shipboard personnel. The work of men and machines is coordinated to safely guide the ship through some very close quarters. Activity increases as a ship approaches the locks. Bright green and orange neon arrows indicate which side of the locks to enter as traffic flows both ways. At this point, lines are brought to the ship. Although many methods have been used to deliver the lines, including motor launches and shooting them from cannons, the trusty rowboat continues to be the most efficient way. Each man has his own technique and is highly skilled. Once the shipboard lines are in place, they're attached to locomotives, called mules. All ships move under their own power, so although it seems as though the mules are towing the vessel, their function is to guide and position. A minimum of 4 and a maximum of 8 mules are used for each ship. Giant steel doors swing shut behind your ship, and a balancing act takes place. Water flows from the higher lock into the lower one, holding your ship. The water level rises until the two are at equal levels. Water flows through culverts beneath the locks. These underground tunnels are the size of a New York subway. During a canal crossing, 52 million gallons of fresh water will be used. Because of the huge tidal flow on the Pacific side of the canal, there are two sets of locks. These Pacific locks were originally planned to be further south, closer to Balboa. For engineering reasons, as well as easier defense, the first locks were moved inland to Miraflores. After passing through the Miraflores locks, ships cruise through Miraflores Lake and then move on to the Pedro Miguel locks. It's extraordinary to realize that these massive 700-ton steel doors are opened with a mere 40-horsepower engine. The doors are hollow, and their buoyancy makes the feat possible. The Gatun locks are the eastern entrance to the canal and are located at a narrowing of Limon Bay. While the Panama Canal is an engineering marvel, part of what makes it so impressive is its simplicity and efficient use of natural resources. The locks use gravity to transfer water. The electricity which powers the necessary machinery is generated from Gatun Lake, which is constantly replenished by Panama's abundant rainfall. It's a supremely well-integrated system. Ships go through the step-up process and enter into Gatun Lake. This lake was centerpiece of the plans finally approved in 1907, when John Stevens convinced President Roosevelt and the Isthmian Canal Commission that a lock canal was the only means to succeed. Formed by damming the Chagres River, Gatun Lake was, for a time, the largest man-made lake ever created. It held that honor until Lake Mead was formed by Hoover Dam. Formation of the lake was integral to the engineering design, but the local population at first refused to move from their villages. They thought the plan was impossible, having seen the failure of the French in their efforts to dam the Chagres. Eventually, villages, jungle, and the original railroad disappeared, as Gatun Lake covered over 160 square miles of land. That's approximately the size of Barbados, where over 20,000 men were recruited as laborers on the canal. You'll often see ships at anchor in Gatun Lake, either waiting their turn to pass through Gatun locks into the Caribbean, or waiting their turn to proceed toward the Pacific. As Gatun Lake narrows, ships pass Gamboa. This is the approximate midpoint of a canal crossing. At Gamboa, the dredging division has its headquarters halfway between two oceans. Dredging is carried on continuously as silt fills in at a rate of 4 inches per year. Every inch counts, as ships can have a maximum draft of 39 feet, 6 inches. Since the canal opened in the summer of 1914, it has only been closed 3 times. Once because of a mudslide, once due to a shipping accident, and most recently due to military intervention. In a clear case of nature taking its course, the problem of slides has never been overcome. After the earth slide that closed the canal for 7 months in 1915, George Goethals declared that the problem had finally been solved. But to this day, mud, rocks, and trees continue to slide into the Gaillard Cut. This 9-mile-long stretch of the canal encases the tragedy and triumph of its building. It is the narrowest, the steepest, and was the most daunting section to excavate. Numbers tell the statistical story, but don't really illustrate it. Few of us can actually visualize 96 million cubic yards of earth, which is the amount excavated to create the cut. The amazing network of blasters, cranemen, engineers, railroad men, and laborers became a model of scheduling efficiency. enormous Bucyrus shovels would take a bite of 8 tons of soil and rock and transfer it to one of the 500 trains which daily carried the material to dumps. There were countless dangers awaiting everyone who was involved in working on the canal. Even after yellow fever was found to be carried by mosquitoes, there were outbreaks of the disease in the canal zone. Malaria, tuberculosis, smallpox, and even bubonic plague were menaces to the health of workers and administrators alike. And death due to mudslides, dynamiting, and equipment accidents took a heartbreaking toll. This plaque commemorates the workers who labored to build the canal. It took 7 years to complete the stretch of the canal which joined Gatun Lake with the Pedro Miguel locks. Though originally called the Culebra Cut, it was renamed in honor of Colonel David Gaillard. He was put in charge of this most difficult component of the canal construction. The choosing of Gaillard is just one example of how the personalities of the men in charge ultimately led to success in building the canal. John Stevens was from the private sector. His skill at organization set up the efficient network of men, housing, and transportation in the formative years of the project. He resigned for reasons that he chose never to explain, and was replaced by someone who couldn't resign because he was in the Army. George Washington Goethals was a brilliant engineer, and his bull-like tenacity saw the construction through to its completion. As you cruise through the Gaillard Cut, the sense of being in the tropics is most strongly felt, and with it comes appreciation of what was created out of the jungle wilderness. At the suggestion of General Goethals, the jungle along the cut was allowed to grow back to its naturally wild state. This was not an environmentally driven decision. Rather, the impenetrable jungle was seen as the best defense against any possible attack on the canal. For Pacific-bound ships, they leave the Gaillard Cut at the Pedro Miguel locks and continue on through Miraflores Lake and locks. Along the banks of Miraflores Lake, red-roofed buildings are visible, a legacy of the colonial era of construction. There is a third lake along the canal, Maiden Lake, but it is never used during a transit. Ships exit the canal under the Bridge of the Americas past Panama City. This city has the unusual distinction in the Western Hemisphere of enjoying sunrises over the Pacific. No one who makes a canal transit can remain unmoved by the enormity of the undertaking and the triumph of its success. It is also surprisingly efficient. The canal operates 24 hours a day to keep the flow of traffic moving from ocean to ocean. By current law, the Panama Canal is not supposed to lose or earn money. Fees charged are to cover operating costs. The smallest fee ever charged was 36 cents, paid by Richard Halliburton when he swam the canal. For the lives lost, the effort rewarded, the ingenuity and engineering displayed here, a traveler can only feel awesome admiration. Author David McCullough describes the construction of the Panama Canal as the moonshot of its era. The words of General Goethals echo across the decades. When asked for the secret of success in building the canal, he answered, "It is the pride that everyone feels in the work." You have experienced one of the world's great engineering wonders, the Panama Canal.